Welcome back. Now, Mr. Parthasarathy, the Group CFO of the M&M Group, spoke with our colleague Ajay Sharma on the extent of the slowdown in the economy, what policy measures would it require from the government to kick-start the economy, and he also talks about industry expectations from the new Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, in Budget 2019.
So, basically there are cycles, and when cycles happen, some of the cycles are down cycles, some are up cycle. And India is a growing market. Sometimes we can get despondency get to us, but please remember it's one of the fastest growing economies, and there is huge potential. So the way we should look at is, okay, we have had a dip, how fast and how far can we go? And for that, all these initiatives, which has got stalled in the last 4-6 months, partly because we have had elections, so a lot of attention has shifted. Consumption story, which was going strong, seemed to have kind of halted. But there are very quick structural things like focus on agri, major projects in rural market, putting more emphasis on creating more urban infrastructure, focus on infrastructure, and focus on processing and agri export. So these are all things that you can do for agri to make it very buoyant. We are not short in terms of production. We are short in terms of managing that production to give value to farmer, and therefore our problem statement is fairly easier to solve if you put the infrastructure to.
Sure. In fact, tons and tons of food and vegetable in India unfortunately goes waste, and it has the potential to be exported or distributed better among the citizens. But the government has spoken about export opportunity as well for the farm produce. Moreover, over and above that, we have a budget lined up ahead very shortly. What are the expectations as a large corporate in your mind where you would like to see immediate action, because the credit squeeze in the economy has also hit consumption to a large extent, at least that the slowdown could be arrested if not completely stalled?
Yeah, you made a very good point. There is a boom cycle, so if you just make the boom cycle come, then automatically the wheel will turn, and then there is multiplier effect. So first thing is government can do is invest in big projects and focus on infra and rural, that taken. So what are in budget, what can we look for, or what should we look for? One is clearly focused on these areas consistently, a sustained focus, money allocated to this. They have already done it in the past, so the second one is they should continue to do it in the new budget. Second is, I'm coming to corporate, there is from Bombay Chambers or from overall, macro, can we get the 25% max tax that was promised? So what will happen is corporates are now struggling in a macro way. They can invest more if they can get some more profits coming out of it, the growth in profits. So again, there is a promise and there is a need. So we can look at, tax being lowered. The third is GST. Now you had GST, which you said average could be 14% or 15 or whatever, around that point. But currently there are many products at a very high level. Automobile industry is languishing because very high taxes. So is there anything to kickstart the demand cycle? Can government also, come and look at these marginal GST rates and bring them down? And if they do that, then it could kickstart the economy. And at the last is give some incentive to invest for private sector. That private sector investment also kickstart. And if you look at these 4 areas, I think in budget that will be good, tactically and structurally.
Right. A couple of questions from the company which you also represent. For the second quarter in a row, we saw cautious commentary coming in on the tractor cycle from Mahindra, and we are also seeing a cusp of monsoon takeoff in the country. Do you think that the cycle may turn with this monsoon, if a monsoon is normal one, or do you think there's risk to further continuation of contraction in the tractor cycle in our country, in your view?
So I think there are very fair questions and I must answer them at some time. But today I am sitting here as president of BCCI, and in that context I don't want to derail this. However, what I think as an optimist and as thing, that this is a cycle, and once this cycle turns, we can look for a lot of upside in the coming months and quarters. I'm saying on behalf of India Inc., I think India Inc. will in the few quarters, you will not remember that we had this.
Oh, that's quite an optimistic point which you managed
So,
to.
as the president of BCCI, that's my hope, and that's what we'll work towards.
Also, as a head of BCCI, you get feedback from your from several other sectors and corporates. Regarding the slowdown, the GDP, there's question mark being raised on the GDP growth number itself. What is the feedback you're getting when the people who are actually on ground, the dealers, the people who are dealing with down-level clients, what is the trajectory of growth from here on in your view in the country?
So one of the two of the very important feedbacks that we are getting, it is not so much anything but liquidity crunch which is kind of killing. So when the NBFC are worried about lending, so then, and if they don't have getting enough funds, then the whole cycle stops. And while bank and fill, they themselves are going through their own. So this is one big aspect that we have to address as part of the new budget and the new government's functioning. How do we get these NBFCs and the banks to lend to the right sectors? So a dealer or one will say, I'm not so much worried about the profit as I'm about the cash.
Sure.
Okay. The second one is in terms of how do we make the realty and other sector, because the whole consumption story is about employment in these areas. So big projects can give some kickstart, but realty sector can sustain that. Today they are stuck. So these two sectors, if they start push, and I think that time has come. So with the right kind of push, that is why I am very optimistic.
My last question to you, we have just seen the RBI policy come and the RBI governor has turned completely from neutral to accommodative. Despite a 325 basis point cuts, there is talk that the transmission is not happening. You represent Bombay Chambers as well as a large industrial group which is seen as a interest rate sensitive. Be it automobile, have interest in real estate as well. What will it take for transmission to start happening? How much lag effect does it have to corporates to actually start getting the benefits of lower rates coming in? And do you see more scope of rate cuts?
Okay. So three questions. So I'll take that. First and foremost is the RBI is looking at providing stability and then growth. But so it's all very important when they say inflation is controlled. I've looked at health drivers and I find that okay. So I'll focus on growth drivers. And I must commend the RBI and the leadership for taking that bold thing, saying that I need both. Yeah. So it is otherwise US was supporting its entire ecosystem by, all kind of thing, and India was struggling in that sense. This is a very good step, the 325. Now transmission is the next game. So the two problems that we have right now is execution and transmission. And I think those are the problems to fix. Part of this is how much is the deposit rate. So unless the deposit rate changes, the lending rate changing is going to be difficult. So and that's the trouble that they're having. So it's a cycle time issue, and I think it should, with the right kind of efforts from both the banking sector and RBI, this transmission we should see in the next quarter or two.